close your eyes and breathe deeply. Welcome to Boring History for Sleep, where we step through a quiet portal of time. Imagine, as the clock ticks on this calm and quiet night, we drift back, slowly, to a 17th-century Japanese village under the Tokugawa Shogunate. The air grows still, the world softens, and every moment stretches into a gentle rhythm. Here, time moves not with haste, but with the steady bend of a rice farmer, the silent stroke of a monk's quill, the deliberate pour of a tea ceremony. No excitement awaits, only the soothing hum of routine designed to cradle you into sleep. Tonight, we'll wander through muddy fields, temple eaves, and village wells, where history whispers in a lullaby. Let the distant rain and the creak of wooden tools guide you as we explore the ordinary lives of long ago. Stay with us, let your mind drift, and allow the past to wrap you in peaceful rest, one slow breath at a time. This is Boring History for Sleep, and your journey to slumber begins. Air is still dark when your eyes open. There is no alarm clock, just the soft shifting of the wind through the paper walls and the distant croak of a frog in the paddy beyond the gate. You roll your shoulders, stretch your knees, and begin the rhythm of the day. The horizon is still ink black, but already there's a hint of blue at the edge. Not sunrise yet, but the idea of it. And maybe pickled radish if the barrel wasn't emptied by your eldest son in the night. But food is not the first thing on your mind. It never is. The tax comes first. You smell smoke, wet soil, the faint tang of straw. Your wife has risen before you. She always does. A bell rings faintly from the direction of the shrine. But mostly, there is only the hush of a world that expects your silence. Her feet barely make a sound on the wooden floor as she lifts the kettle and swings open the door to the outer kitchen. You roll your sleeves, tighten your sash, and step into the water. It is colder than expected, always is, and the mud swallows your feet like a secret. Bend, reach, plant, straighten, shift, repeat. Your back tightens before the sun rises fully. And so you keep moving, keep planting, keep hoping the clouds do not turn. By midday, your hands are blistered again, even though the old ones never truly healed, or an official who believes your yield was higher than you claimed. It is your pledge to the daimyo, to the shogun, to a world of people who will never see your face but expect your hands to stay busy. You owe nearly half your harvest in tax. Rice measured not by what you grew, but by what they expected you to grow. You sit with your family, legs folded beneath you, and you eat in near silence. Wonder if this year's tribute will be enough. Not out of formality, but fatigue. The food is warm, plain, perfect. The land, not the weather, determines the tribute. Of walking into Edo, or becoming a merchant, or even joining the low ranks of the samurai as a retainer. It belongs to the land, to the rice, to the season. But those are not dreams you say aloud. Your grandfather once tried to sell goods from the village. He was fined, publicly, humiliated with wooden stocks in the village square. You were 5. You remember his face, not angry, just tired. You clean them in the canal, check the bundles of seedlings, and carry everything back. Riku trails behind. He humming a song from the last festival, the one with the lanterns and the old man who danced like a crane. That night was 6 months ago. It feels like another life. He returned to the fields and said nothing for the rest of his life. The morning begins, as it always does, not with words, but with duty. The sweat drips down your temple. The sky moves overhead, slowly. Your futon is thin. Your joints ache not from age, but from habit. A woven straw hat, frayed at the edge. A small pouch of dried barley tied to your sash. Something to chew when your hands forget they re-hungry. Your son walks beside you, wordless. He's 9, but the lines on his face suggest more. His name is Riku. He carries a bucket of seed. You hear her and smile. The smallest comforts are not luxuries, they are survival. Together, you walk the path down to the paddy. You are 33, and already you feel older than your father once looked. You sit upright, slowly. The house is silent. No fire crackles yet, and the embers from last night's hearth are only a soft, gray reminder of warmth. You step outside into the chill. The wooden step is damp with morning dew. The ground is soft beneath your sandals. You do not think about breakfast. It is the same every morning. Rice, if the storehouse is kind. In the Tokugawa era, rice is not only food, it is currency. It is your blood. The seasons do not always agree. You shoulder your tools. A hoe, still damp from yesterday's toil. The village is barely stirring. One old woman sweeps the temple's stone steps. A rooster crows twice. The fields stretch wide, neatly flooded, shimmering under the pale light. A frog jumps. A bird lifts its wings from a post. And then the day begins in earnest. Hours pass without a clock. The rhythm of planting, weeding, harvesting, it's all muscle memory. There is little room for pause. If you stop, the work does not. The weeds do not rest. The water does not still. A storm can undo weeks of labor, but so can drought or pests. Sometimes you dream of not farming. You work until your arms tremble. Your wife brings you barley tea at midday. You drink it without sitting. The mud sticks to your ankles. In the afternoon, the children help with sorting. Riku's younger sister gathers weeds. She sings softly as she works. When the sun finally dips, your tools are heavier. Back home, the hearth is lit. The rice is ready. Later, you check the granary, count the sacks, measure the moisture, worry about the mold. And when you finally lay down again on that same thin futon, your body does not feel like it belongs to you. You drift to sleep with the faint sound of frogs and the knowledge that tomorrow will be exactly the same. And that, perhaps, is the only comfort you're allowed. You awaken not to the sound of alarm, nor the chime of a bell, but to the soft rustle of the wind pushing against the rice paper walls of your cell. It is neither cold nor warm, neither dark nor bright. The moment is suspended. The hush before sunrise, the breath before prayer, legs folded, hands resting on your knees, the soles of your feet pressed together. You breathe slowly. You listen to the rhythm of the temple, the faint creak of a gate, the sigh of cedar planks beneath passing sandals. Somewhere far down the corridor, someone pours water from one vessel to another. You do not rush. You are 46. You do not own much. A second robe for colder months, a wooden comb, a straw broom, and a stack of blank paper that smells faintly of smoke. Ink is rationed carefully. Your brush, worn at the edge, was once your teacher's. The walls are old, but they do not decay. One spends all day copying sutras, hunched over a scroll that seems to never end. You are the only one who still walks the garden path each day. You sweep slowly, not for efficiency, but for intention. Each grain of sand, Each fallen leaf is acknowledged. Some monks debate whether enlightenment arrives suddenly or gradually. You think it arrives in the sound a leaf makes as it lands on gravel. The only one who leaves the temple gate to fetch supplies from the village every 7th day. Steam curls around the clay kettle's lid. You prepare 2 small bowls of barley, one for yourself, one for the elder monk whose teeth can no longer chew. You carry it to his room, bow, and place it near his mat. He does not speak. He hasn't in 5 years, but his eyes open as you set down the bowl, and you nod to one another. As you have 1,000 times, you pour more water. You sit in the shade of the bell tower and rest your hands. But you feel the act of writing them is enough. They are not for others. They are a mirror, a record, a whisper to the universe that you noticed something small today. Heat the water. Whisk the powder. Sip it in 3 small intervals. You face the garden, where the gravel is once again littered with leaves. You do not rise. Not yet. Offer a moment of tea. He declines, but bows twice before leaving. You watch him disappear down the hill. Carry oil in a small clay jug. The temple glows softly, not bright enough to read, but enough to walk. The ruts from his cart will remain until the next rain. Pickled plum. You do not look at the stars directly, but you feel their light pressing against the dark. A small cup of hot water with ginger. You sit across from the silent monk. You chew slowly, or if you do, it's only of gravel, wind, and poems left unread. The sound of crickets fills the space between your thoughts. The villagers call you the cloud monk, not because you float, but because your presence always seems to disappear the moment someone turns their head. The roof leaks in the northeast corner, but it has done so for longer than you've been alive. Today, your ink is thin, but your mind is still. The garden is simple. 1 lantern, 3 stones, a raked path of pale gravel that curves for no reason other than to please the eyes. And you have lived here for 22 years. You will prepare tea, and you will boil barley for the older monk who no longer leaves his bed. You will write 2 poems, one before the sun reaches the center of the sky, one before it disappears again, and lie down. Instead, you sit. Your name is Corinne. This is your temple, but not in the sense of ownership. It holds you, not the other way around. Today will be like most days. You will chant. You will tend to the altar. You will sweep leaves from the shrine path. You spend the next hour sanding a split in the wooden railing. A task so small it would never appear on a list, but enough to slow your mind. But first, you rise. Your robe is folded neatly beside your mat. The fabric is coarse, but familiar. You pour cold water into a stone basin and wash your face. The chill centers you. You do not speak. Speech comes only when necessary, and rarely in the morning. The words are not sung. They are released, syllable by syllable, as if carried by your breath alone. Outside, a bird answers. You do not smile, but your breath deepens. Words are like leaves on the surface of water. Too many, and you can see the reflection. You bow toward the altar, light incense, and begin your morning chants. The temple is not large. 5 monks live here. 1 is blind. 1 no longer speaks. After chanting, you sweep. The broom is worn, and the path long, but each stroke brings clarity. You return to the kitchen. You boil water. After breakfast, you write. Your poems are never long. 5 lines, sometimes 7. You use the old-style kanji Chinese characters arranged with Japanese rhythm. A sparrow's wing bends. Wind reshapes the temple bell. Even silence rings. You let the ink dry, fold the paper, place it with the others. You have never shared these with anyone, not even your teacher. You bow again, and you return to work. There are scrolls to mend, wax to trim. The floorboards need oiling, and the main gate drags on its frame. By midday, the sun has moved just high enough to stretch the shadows flat. Afternoon is tea. Not the ceremony, not yet, just quiet tea. You prepare it carefully. Instead, you compose your second poem. Tea bowl warms both palms. A cloud blots the light's return. Still, the steam climbs up. Later in the day, a merchant arrives at the temple gate. He brings paper and salt. You bow, thank him. Evening approaches with long shadows and the scent of pine. You light the lanterns in the corridor. Dinner is plain rice. When it is dark enough, you climb the steps to the small roof platform. You sit, cross-legged, back straight, eyes half closed. You do not wait for enlightenment, only stillness. Time passes, maybe an hour, maybe more. You return to your cell, fold your robe, unroll the mat, place the brush beside your poems. Outside a bell rings once, low and long. You do not dream. Before the water boils, before the matcha is sifted, before the tatami mat is swept of its final speck of dust, there is stillness, not silence, not absence, but presence. Full, intentional presence. The path to the tea room is narrow and curved, lined with stones made smooth by generations of bare feet. Moss grows between them. A low lantern burns faintly at the bend, though it is still morning. The scent of pine and wood smoke hangs in the air. Even the birds seem to sing softer here. You arrive at the tea house not as a guest, not as a host, but as a participant in something older than memory. You bow slightly as you enter the outer gate, and again as you reach the waiting bench. The host has not yet emerged, and so you sit, not impatiently. There is no schedule. Time here does not move with clocks, but with gestures. This is not a place for conversation. Words are not forbidden, but unnecessary. You lift the ladle, rinse your hands, then your mouth. The cold water is a small shock, but it clears your senses. You are reminded that you are not here to be entertained. You are here to participate in harmony. Only tatami mats, a scroll with one brush-painted character, a flower arranged not for beauty, but for balance. Not the day before, not the day to come. Only this moment, this bowl, this breath. The cloth is folded with reverence. The bamboo scoop is held upright. The whisk, rinsed, rests on its stand like a curled lotus. You kneel, you fold your hands, and you wait. You bow, you breathe. You thank the host, not with words, but with presence. When the host finally appears, you bow once more, lower this time, and follow him to the cleansing basin. You rotate it a quarter turn, admire its glaze, its imperfections. Then you sip. The tea house itself is humble, a single room with a low entrance that forces even a warrior to bow. Humility is required here. Everyone must stoop to enter. Inside, there is no furniture. Lifts the bamboo scoop as if it were made of glass. But you will remember how the world softened when you stopped to sip. The matcha powder is sifted, green as moss, soft as ash. He pours the hot water. The whisk circles gently. There is no rush, only rhythm. The host moves slowly. Every motion is practiced, not out of performance, but devotion. He wipes the bowl with a fine white cloth, rinses it. You watch. The steam curls upward. The bowl turns in his hand, then in yours. You bow. You lift it. The taste is earthy, bitter, alive. You do not speak. The host watches quietly. He offers a soft nod. The ceremony continues. Each bowl of tea is a world, not because of its ingredients, but because of the attention it commands. Nothing else exists. When the utensils are cleaned, they are placed down slowly, as if returning something sacred to the earth. You do not leave immediately. Outside, the world feels louder, but something inside you has quieted. Later, when you return home, you remember the touch of the bowl, the scent of steam, the moment when the whisk moved in silence, and you realize the tea ceremony was not about tea. It was about being still enough to notice your life as it happens. And in that stillness, you carry peace like a folded cloth in your sleeve. You will forget the steps. You will forget the name of the flower in the alcove or the shape of the bamboo scoop. You will remember that simplicity is not emptiness. It is fullness with nothing extra. And that is the art of stillness. Stillness takes time. It begins not with action, but with letting go. Letting go of the sound in your mind, the clutter in your thoughts, the pressure of what's next. But here, in the quiet of the tea house, it becomes something else. A ceremony, a mirror, a moment. Its earliest forms began in the 9th century, but it flourished in the 15th and 16th centuries, especially under masters like Murata Juke and Sen no Rikyuta. The latter emphasized four qualities: harmony, respect, purity, and tranquility. These are not abstract ideas, they are physical acts. You bow to the space, that is respect. You sweep the floor, that is purity. You prepare tea without rush, that is tranquility. A slight crack, a glaze that pooled too thickly, a shape just off-center. These are not flaws. The host kneels in seiza, the formal sitting position, and moves the tools in a predetermined pattern. These are not robotic actions. They are an offering. You are not here to critique, but to receive. And in receiving, to awaken, an expression of attentiveness. They are beauty. Wabi-sabi, the beauty of imperfection, of the fleeting, is the soul of Japanese aesthetics. To hold a bowl that has served tea for generations is to hold time in your hands. You turn it, not out of custom, but to admire its side. To notice the side the host chose not to face you. You drink slowly. 1 sip, 2, 3. You wipe the rim with your thumb and finger, and you bow. In the Japanese tea ceremony, every movement has meaning because it was born from centuries of refinement. Even the way the guest walks around the roji, the dewy garden path, is part of the experience. A parting, a return, and yet at its heart it is simple. Water, heat, powder, bowl, breath, not with curiosity, but with gratitude. A scoop carved by hand, a bowl once used by a long-past teacher. Each item has a story, though it is told in silence. You may not think of tea as sacred. You may drink it hurriedly on the way to work, while reading a book or checking your thoughts. Others are brief, called chakai, a simple exchange. But in all, the aim is the same: to return to the essence of things. The traditional Japanese tea ceremony, chanowu, the way of tea, is rooted in Zen Buddhism. Everything is part of the practice. The gathering of charcoal, the careful folding of the fukusa cloth, the rinsing of the chowan, the tea bowl. There are many types of tea ceremonies. Some are elaborate, full-length gatherings with meals, incense, and multiple servings of tea to strip away excess, to become present. The utensils themselves are chosen with care. A chawan is not perfect. In fact, many prefer it not to be. During a full ceremony, even the placement of each item matters. As the guest, you watch closely, not to judge, but to join. When you sip the tea, you hold the bowl with both hands. No one claps, no one talks. There is only breath, and maybe, somewhere outside, the faint chirp of a cicada or the soft shifting of wind through bamboo. This is not performance. This is reverence. After the ceremony, guests may examine the utensils. The ceremony ends not with fanfare, but with a bow. And yet, something lingers, a stillness, a sense of grounding, a reminder that even in a chaotic world, you can step into a space that honors the now. That is what the tea ceremony teaches, not how to make tea, but how to live with care, with presence, with gratitude. And when you carry that lesson with you, in your next sip of tea, your next moment of pause, you carry centuries of wisdom in your breath, not loudly, just quietly enough to change everything. You wake before dawn, not to farm, not to sweep, not to light the fire or gather the morning water. You rise because the world expects you to, because you were born into a name, and that name was born into a role, the role of the samurai. Now, you serve a different duty, not to a sword, but to an idea, to presence, to order, to vigilance. But the village is quiet, still wrapped in mist. There are no battles to fight, no conquests to chase. The age of war is gone. The house is small, not grand. The days of elaborate castles and sieges have passed. In this 17th century village, you live in a modest dwelling, tiled roof, wooden beams, paper sliding doors that crackle faintly with the wind. You nod to them as you pass. They bow in return, not out of fear, not always out of respect, but out of routine. You wore them like your layered robes beneath everything else. With warfare at a standstill, many became bureaucrats, scribes, teachers, and administrators. It reminds them, you offer a coin, clap your hands twice, and bow, not because you seek favor, but because the rhythm of your life includes moments of reverence, not of power. A haiku about morning mist, or a crow's solitary cry. Many samurai are poets, not for praise, but for balance. A sword without thought is violence. A sword with thought becomes restraint, a form of discipline. You bow not in worship, but in memory of what you were trained for, of what never came, of the possibility of violence held in check, but of place. Still, they kept their status, their training, their codes. The Bushido, the way of the warrior, was a living philosophy. Loyalty, rectitude, courage, respect, benevolence, honor, self-control. You do not always understand its meaning, but you respect it. It watches you as you sleep, practicing your kata alone, in the grove behind the shrine. You are their watcher, their unspoken guardian. You keep the order. You represent the Lord. You are, for them, the line between law and chaos, between harvest and hardship. Your feet slide into the straw sandals. The floor beneath you is chilled. You cross the wooden hallway with practiced silence. Your sword rests beside your bedding, always. You do not polish it this morning. You already did last night. The blade needs little care. It is not for use. Rice, pickled radish, perhaps a sliver of dried fish. Your wife joins you. She pours the tea. The children are already asleep. You share no idle talk, just warmth, just presence. There is the scent of cypress, perhaps cedar. A rooster crows somewhere beyond the trees, but you remain still. You are practicing zanshin, a state of awareness. Even in peace, you prepare. It is for remembrance, structured, predictable, boring perhaps, in the eyes of a child, but not for you. Discipline does not rest. Honor does not sleep. Instead, you kneel and breathe. Your eyes remain closed. Your hands rest gently on your knees. The air is cool. You are samurai, but this is not the battlefield. This is life. Outside, the rice farmers are already at work. But you do not meddle. You observe. The samurai class during the Tokugawa period was less about swords and more about structure. These were not just words, they were shapes, expectations. You walk the edge of the fields. A child calls out. You glance, nod, move on. Your presence is enough. You stop by the shrine. The wooden beams are weathered, the paper lanterns faded. Later, you might take to writing, poetry, perhaps. You think of the scroll in your home, inked with a single word, stillness. It was your father's, his father's, before him. The day unfolds in simple tasks, supervising a village dispute over land, teaching a boy to hold a wooden sword. You do not speak much. You do not need to. Your silence teaches more than your words. The samurai are not rulers. They are reminders. You eat your evening meal in silence. When the day ends, you bow once more to your blade. And as you lie on your tatami mat, staring at the dark ceiling above, you do not long for battle. You long for balance. And so you sleep, not as a warrior, but as a guardian of peace. In the 17th century, under the Tokugawa Shogunate, the samurai class underwent transformation. With Japan unified and wars halted, the role of the samurai shifted from battlefield leaders to civil enforcers. His words, few. He heard the laughter of children, the grumble of farmers, the hush of monks. And he watched it all, not as judge, but as observer. They became administrators, court officials, and moral compasses. The village samurai was not a general. He was a guide. His days were structured, his movements precise. He lived between the temple bell and the bamboo grove, because in the Tokugawa world, every class had its place. And the samurai's place was to ensure the dance continued. The roads are worn but orderly. Other samurai pass by you, some dressed more elaborately, others plainly. You do not compare. Grain production, tax compliance, disputes resolved. The clerk nods, records your words with a bamboo brush. A junior official bows and offers you tea. The sky is deep blue, no stars tonight, but still you watch. You walk as you were taught, straight-backed, without fanfare, but not to own, only to serve, without applause, with quiet dignity, gravel raked in perfect swirls. The sound of water, not rushing, just trickling, fills the silence. A crane lifts its head from the shallows, looks at you, then resumes its slow step. You visit the castle town once a season. It's a journey of several hours, maybe a full day, on foot. In the castle, you deliver your report. The village sees you and relaxes slightly. They hadn't noticed your absence, but now that you're back, the balance returns. On your way out, you pass a garden, manicured pines, this is your land. You return by twilight, your shadow long across the road. That night, before you sleep, you sit quietly on the engawa, the wooden porch, and listen to the frogs in the rice paddies, because even in stillness you serve, and in sleep you remain samurai. You awaken before the temple bell, when the air still clings to the chill of night, and even the insects remain silent. Your hands, rough from years of rinsing and wringing, ache faintly as you rise. There is no alarm, no urgency, only the quiet rhythm of duty, of tradition. Beneath it, the shallow channel of stream water winds patiently, drawn and diverted centuries ago to serve the monastery. Bamboo pipes and troughs keep the flow alive. The sound of the trickling water is constant, like a memory that never fades. You tie your sleeves back. The robe slips from your shoulders to your waist. Beneath, your skin feels the touch of cold air. Your breath curls in soft clouds as you kneel. Outside, the stars fade slowly behind a soft indigo sky. The water is dark and still before your hands meet it. Others are older, heavier, layered with years of wear and care. It cradles. Each robe has its own way of folding, of releasing its burden into the basin. When they do, it shocks you awake, but not violently. This is a familiar cold, a daily cold. Her presence shifts the space, not in volume, but in breath. The breeze lifts them gently, like quiet sighs. The laundry dances with the morning wind, its wet fabric catching light. The spot near the elbow that always holds a trace of ink. The slow swirl of a fabric sash floating just beneath the surface of the water. Now, there is the sound of 2 pairs of hands at work. 4 palms sliding across cloth. 4 wrists twisting slow arcs through air and water. A friend in its own quiet way. A robe soaked in water and draped just so. A basin catching the first falling leaf of autumn. The hollow knock of bamboo against stone. Light filters through the bamboo slats along the outer wall of the cloister. The basins empty and fill again. The fabric swells with cold, then relaxes with sun. The wooden slats warm to the touch. You do not yearn for other work. This is your cloister. These are your hands. This is your day. Your knees find comfort in the same position they have known for years. A young novice comes with a bundle half her size. She drops it, and cloth spills across the ground. You do not scold her. You smile. You help her gather the pieces. Her hands are still clumsy. Yours are not. It paints lines of gold across the floor. You pause only to stretch your back and rub your fingers. Already, the warmth begins to find your spine, a reminder that the world beyond the cloister is waking too. The hem of your robe brushes against duet grass. You do not speak. No one does. Speech belongs to other parts of the day. This hour belongs to silence and to water. The laundry cloister is waiting, as it always is. How to turn it to the seam. How to feel with fingertips where the soap still lingers. It stands apart from the main living quarters. A long wooden corridor lined with stone basins. You step into the cold morning. Your feet press into the dirt path, worn smooth by generations before you. You submerge each one slowly, gently coaxing the stains out with a methodical rhythm. Dip, rub, rinse, wring. Dip, rub, rinse, wring. As you enter the laundry cloister, Your fingers instinctively find the worn cloth wraps hanging near the entry. The first basin is already filled from the stream. You begin with the cloths used in the refectory, soaked in soy broth, fish scent, and green tea. They require time and care. Another monk joins you. She does not greet you aloud. She bows. You bow in return. You move on to robes. Some belong to the younger monks, their hems still crusted with earth from kneeling in the gardens or practicing walking meditation. The repetition is soothing. The chill no longer bites. Every motion is known to you. The way the linen softens after the third rinse. You do not rush. Time does not ask you to. The sun begins to rise. You carry the rinsed cloths to the long wooden bar outside. One by one, you hang them in rows. There are moments here that feel sacred, not because of prayer, but because of pattern. These are not grand moments. They are not celebrated, but they are real, and they are enough. More monks arrive. Some bring linens from the guest hall. Others carry towels from the bathhouse. You guide her without words. You show her how to press the cloth flat before washing. In time, she finds her rhythm too. The morning passes this way, in water, in cloth, in breath. You do not think of other places. And when the last robe is hung, you sit for a moment and let the stillness return. You breathe. You listen to the water one more time. It has never stopped. But your day does not end when the cloths are hung. There is folding, sorting, returning. Some garments go to the meditation hall. Others are reserved for guests, carefully tucked into cedar-lined chests. You recognize which belong to whom, not by names. Names are rarely spoken, but by stitch, by wear, by the shape of how each robe drapes on a shoulder. Creased not with force, but with care. It is a kind of reverence. You do not worship the cloth, but you honor its service. The folding, too, is a ceremony. Each robe is laid on a wooden plank, smoothed with both hands, folded once from the sleeve, again from the hem. The novice watches you. She mimics your motions. Her fingers hesitate, but they learn. You say nothing. You eat simply, sitting on the wooden step with the novice beside you. She sips her soup in silence. You feel her hunger slow. You chew methodically, watching steam curl upward and disappear. Somewhere, a bell rings, not the main gong, but a small one. The water, still cold, carries the last of the salt away, but it does not burden. Time passing. There is no need. The wind outside rises and falls. A crow caws from the temple roof. Time folding. You prepare warm rice and miso in the adjoining room. A kettle rests on the coals. When the bowls are empty, you wash them at the basin. Later, you carry the empty baskets back to storage. Your arms, though tired, feel light. The work has weight. You walk the cloister one last time. The basins glisten now in the full light of afternoon. The air is warmer. The floorboards creak softly underfoot. You pause to touch the edge of the final drying robe. It is nearly ready, dry, pure, soft, ready to begin the cycle again. Because, in the laundry cloister, nothing is ever finished, only repeated. Only the bell rings, a slow, deep sound that rolls across the courtyard and brushes gently against the eaves of the monastery buildings. You do not flinch. The tone is not a call to action, but a soft, familiar cue. It is time. Time to gather. Time to eat. You place the broom along the wall, its handle polished smooth by many hands before yours. As you walk, your sandals make a muted, shuffling sound. The sun is high but muted, its light filtered through the paper shutters and bamboo awnings. You pass others heading the same way, all moving slowly, all in silence. You do not speak. No one does. Meals are not moments of conversation. They are moments of stillness. You kneel on the cushion, folding your legs beneath you. Your hands rest in your lap. You do not look around. You lower your gaze. A breeze moves through the open paper screens, stirring the edge of a hanging scroll. The scroll bears a single calligraphic character, one you know by heart: gratitude. This is not a space for distraction. It is a space for mindful presence. You rise from your bench where you were sweeping the garden path. You slide the top bowl from the stack in front of you. Rice, pale and steaming. Beneath it, miso soup with floating shards of tofu and seaweed, a smaller dish of pickled vegetables, a slice of simmered daikon, nothing more. A row of bowls set out, each identical, each in its place. Nothing is hurried, nothing is extravagant. The path to the refectory is worn stone, edged with moss. The miso warms your throat. The pickles are sharp, bright, a contrast to the rest. You do not eat for pleasure. You eat for presence, for balance. At the doorway, you pause, you bow. You enter the refectory, the communal eating hall, and it greets you with its simplicity. Long wooden tables, low to the ground, cushions arranged with quiet precision. The scent of cooked rice, miso, and simmered vegetables lingers gently in the air, not overpowering, just enough to remind you that nourishment waits. You find your place of simplicity, of the path that leads through the body, through breath, through hunger. The others settle into place, a soft rustle of robes, the creak of wooden beams, a silence that stretches just long enough to echo in your thoughts. The sound of a bell, small, high, delicate, signals the beginning of the meal. You use a folded piece of pickled radish to clean the bowl, then eat that too. Nothing is wasted, not even the remnants of taste. You do not understand every word, but you know the meaning. A blessing for the food, a reminder of the labor behind it, a vow to eat in awareness and humility. You bow your head. One monk stands and begins to chant. His voice is low and even. You feel the texture of the wood, the curve of the rim, the quiet resistance of the soup-stained lacquer. The chant ends. Bowls are lifted. Each monk moves slowly, carrying their set toward the washing station. A long basin with flowing water, buckets for rinsing, towels for drying. You pick up your wooden chopsticks. They are smooth from use, bound together with twine. You eat slowly. The warmth of the soup, the calm of the reading, the rhythm of eating, all of it moves with you. At evening and again, tomorrow and again and again, it will not change. There is no speaking, only the quiet click of chopsticks against bowl, the occasional gentle slurp of soup, the sound of breath. Each bite is a ceremony. You chew mindfully. The rice is soft, sticky, faintly sweet. A monk reads aloud from the sutras. Her voice is calm, steady, without flourish. She speaks of impermanence. You listen, not for information, but for rhythm. She reads slowly. Each syllable falls like a drop of water. Between each passage, a pause. You finish your rice. You drink the last of the soup. You stack your bowls neatly. You place your chopsticks across the top. You bow again. The reader finishes. There is a final moment of silence, then another bell. The meal has ended, but not the practice. Now comes the cleansing. You rise with your bowl stack and move in line. You wash your bowls with care, not scrubbing, but coaxing the remaining grains and drops away with cool water and your fingertips. You dry them gently. You place them back on the shelf, in their exact place. You bow once more, then you leave, back through the doorway, back into the light. The meal is done. The silence remains. You return to your task, perhaps in the garden, or the library, or the workshop, but the stillness of the refectory lingers. You will return to this room again, and that is its comfort. You enter the corridor behind the main prayer hall, a narrow passage lined with wooden beams, darkened by age and the oils of many hands that once passed along it. The air grows cooler here, more still. Each footstep sounds softer, as if the walls themselves are wrapped in quiet. Ahead, a single door waits. The library. Not because anyone watches, but because it is the custom, an act of reverence for the knowledge, for the words, for the silence that lives within. The door slides open without sound. You bow before entering. The air smells of old paper, polished wood, and the faintest trace of incense from the altar next door. Inside, the light is dim, natural, filtered through rice paper screens and narrow slits beneath the eaves. There are no voices. There is only the sound of your breath, the creak of your sandal, and the soft, steady tick of time as it moves across the shelves. The shelves reach almost to the ceiling. They are not stuffed, not overflowing, but each volume is precisely placed. You recognize scriptures, poetry, medicinal texts, collections of koans, the personal reflections of long-departed abbots. Every scroll here has its rhythm, its own breath. Codices sewn with twine, wooden boxes, some locked, some sealed with wax. Many are labeled with calligraphy, elegant, deliberate. Some have faded over time, the brushstrokes soft and worn. The paper is fibrous, slightly yellowed, the edges soft from generations of hands. The ink is dark, slightly uneven, applied with care, but with the small imperfections that remind you this was made by a human hand, a monk long ago, probably in this very room. You walk the perimeter first. Your knees settle onto the cushion, which has just the faintest scent of the sun. A monk has likely placed it outside to air earlier that morning. Your hand does not touch the books. That is not allowed unless one is reading. The words move from the page to your eyes, to your breath. A sentence, a question. They linger there, resting somewhere just behind your ribs. You kneel before the reading table, low, simple, made of cedar. Without asking, he brings a scroll from the second shelf on the north wall. An ancient collection of Zen teachings, transcribed by hand over a century ago. He knows why you have come. He sets it down before you. You bow to him. He bows in return. Then he vanishes into the shelves again, silent as a thought. You study the scroll. It is not large. You do not rush. You untie the silk cord slowly. You read, not aloud, never aloud. Each passage is brief, but deep. You let it sit. You watch the light shift through the paper wall. Then you read the next. This is how the morning passes, slowly, intentionally, as if the library is its own world, separate from the garden, from the refectory, from the outer noise of even the quietest monastery life. This room does not know seasons, only stillness. Even the dust here seems to float more gently. The knees grow stiff with time, but you do not complain. You simply shift and resume. The cushions are not soft by design. They ground the body in awareness. You change positions. Another monk retrieves it without words. This one holds records, not teachings, but lineage. A history of the abbots and their commentaries. A second scroll waits. You are simply reading a section, not standing at the edge of something long gone. Here, you are part of it, another quiet witness in a chain of quiet witnesses. The way they ended their time in this world. Many passed into silence. Others entered the mountain. Yet you know it is time. You recognize a name carved into the stone near the vegetable garden. Now you know his story. You roll the scroll with care. Your ears, now attuned to quiet, register every creak of wood, every footfall, every breeze stirring the lattice. You retie the silk cord, as if the scroll's words have folded themselves into the rhythm of your breath, into the rhythm of your day. You place the scroll on the return table. You bow. You read their names, their birth years, the brief notations of their service. But your breath feels slower, your thoughts more settled. The silence lingers, not as an absence, but as a presence, like mist or still water. Time folds in this room, into the echo of those who came before and those who will come after. The past does not feel distant. It is layered, like the pages of the scroll, like rings in a tree trunk. You look up from the table. Across the room, another monk studies a map, drawn in ink, mountains rendered with such precision that even the clouds above them seem to move. He breathes slowly. His eyes trace each line, each character, as if they hold a key, and perhaps they do. The library is not for escape, it is for arrival. To arrive fully into the mind, into the moment. Hours pass without announcement. Light shifts, tilting just slightly on the edge of a scroll. The incense grows faint, then absent. No bell has rung. You finish the passage you are reading. As you leave the library, you carry nothing in your hands. The hallway greets you again. The light seems brighter here. You do not speak. You do not need to. You return to your chores. But something within you now turns more slowly. The library remains behind you, still waiting. Timeless, you will return, because the silence is never finished, only paused, and always waiting to begin. The monastery does not keep time in the way you might imagine. There are no ticking hands on the wall, no numbers to consult, no alarms to sound. The bell tower tolls, a single low note that vibrates through your bones. It is matins, the night hour. Time is not a thing to be possessed here. It is a river to step into, a bell that calls you, a breath that passes through without question. You rise before the world stirs, before the black sky softens. You do not question, you simply move. The Latin flows like a stream, and though you do not always understand each word, you know their rhythm, their weight. The prayers are centuries old. You are simply lending your voice. The cloister is cold. Your sandals tap on the stone floor. Your robes rustle against the silence. You do not speak. No one does. The air is thick with sleep, yet sharpened by ritual. You are here for constancy. When the final verse fades, the monks file out in silence. You take your seat in the choir stall, candlelight casting soft shadows on ancient stone. Matins begins. You chant psalms slowly. each syllable a breath. Matins is long. The cold seeps into your limbs, but you do not move. You are not here for comfort. The prayer has done its work. You return to your cell, a thin grayness at the edges of the sky. You rise again, your body heavy but trained. In the chapel, the candles are brighter. The chants are more hopeful. The words speak of light, of awakening, of mercy renewed each morning. You stoop to pull weeds, to harvest root vegetables, to tend to the cabbages. Birds begin to chirp in the hedges. The sun has not risen far, but you feel it, slowly warming the crown of your head. There is still darkness. You rest for a short time, or perhaps you only lie still. Sleep, if it comes, is brief. Then the next bell rings. Lauds, the morning praise. This time, the light has begun to stir. You bow, you rise, you kneel, you sing. The monastery breathes in and out through its labor. Each monk, a hand, a shoulder, a back in motion. Lauds is shorter than matins, but just as serious. When it ends, you do not linger. There is no applause, no talk. Now comes prime, the first hour of labor. You do not hear a bell for this. The rhythm has already entered your bones. You gather tools. Perhaps you are assigned to the garden, or the kitchen, or the scriptorium. The garden is still damp with dew. The earth is cool. You do not speak, but you listen to the scrape of a hoe, the soft thud of dirt, the flutter of robes as a brother passes. When the bell rings again, it is terse, the third hour. You wipe your hands. You brush soil from your robe. You enter the chapel once more. Terse is a brief office, but no less meaningful. It reminds you, this hour belongs not to the world, but to God, to silence, to gratitude. You recite psalms again, your voice blending with those around you. The quill is already sharpened. You dip it gently in ink made from gall and soot. You write, not as a performance, but as a thread in the weave of daily devotion. The Gospels, a commentary, a sermon. Your hand does not shake. Your breath is steady. This is prayer in motion. Every letter a gesture of surrender. The moment when everything is brightest, and yet it asks for stillness, for reflection. Then you return to labor. His voice a slow murmur over the sound of chewing. You eat bread, cheese, perhaps soup. Always simple, always the same. Perhaps now to the scriptorium. You sit at a wooden desk, a candle to your left, a fresh sheet of parchment before you. Letter by letter, each stroke matters. A single smudge could ruin a page. You copy from a master text. The hours fold over one another like waves. You stretch your legs. You return to the chapel. At midday, the bell tolls again. Sext, the 6th hour. The sun is high now. It floods the windows, casting lattice shadows across the stone. You pause your work. Sext is quiet. It marks the still point of the day. You chant, you bow, and then you eat. The refectory is silent. Only the appointed monk reads aloud. You give thanks without words. When the meal ends, you return to work, or to study, or to the field. When the bell tolls next, it is none, the 9th hour. You are weary now. The sun begins its descent. You feel it in your shoulders, in the ache of your knees. The sky outside is deep blue. A few stars flicker. The words of Compline are gentle, protective. They ask for safe passage into sleep, for shelter through the night, not wasted, every hour accounted for. every breath shared in silence. But you go, you always go, or sweeping. Only the bell that will toll again, pulling you once more into prayer, into purpose. Or mending robes, nothing grand, just the work that keeps the monastery breathing, to the chapel, to chant, to bow. The chanting is rich, more musical, filled with awe and release. The psalms speak of ending, of mercy, of rest, to breathe. None is a soft hour, a turning. Afterward, there is quiet labor, perhaps tending to candles. Vespers follows, the evening hour. Here, the light is golden, the shadows long. You sing as if pouring your day into the notes. When Vespers ends, there is a hush, a sacred pause. Then Compline, the final prayer. The candles are low again. You kneel, you breathe, you listen. The last note fades. You bow and return to your cell. The day has folded in on itself. Not hurried, you lie down. There is no clock to measure the time. Only the rhythm inside. The final bell of the day has long faded, and the monastery has fallen into its softest silence. This is not the bustling hush of daylight prayer or the communal quiet of meals. This silence is deeper. The others sleep in their cells, each one a stone room with little more than a cot, a blanket, and a crucifix. You walk barefoot sometimes, but tonight the stones are too cold. The hush that surrounds you is sacred. Tonight the sky is clear. The stars hang low and sharp. You glimpse them between the pillars as you pace slowly, steadily. You breathe into it, not wishing to break it. You inhale slowly, deeply, and begin your rounds. The air is cool, and you feel the chill settle into your robe. You do not light a torch. There is no need. Watching not for danger, but for the keeping of rhythm. You see frost clinging to the edges of the garden beds. You remember sitting inside that room in silence, feeling the breath of others who said nothing and everything with their stillness. The air smells of mint, though the herbs are asleep. You pause and look upward. The stars are unmoving, eternal, for the guarding of stillness. You pause at each corner of the walk, bow your head and listen. The moonlight offers just enough, thin beams slipping through the narrow slits in the walls, painting long lines across the flagstone floor. Thicker, it folds around the stone walls like a blanket, wrapping the entire abbey in darkness and breath. You do not stir unless called, but tonight you are the one chosen for the night watch. The scent here is older, dust and wax and ancient plaster. You pass the door to the library, locked now, but you bow all the same. The wisdom within still hums behind the walls. You rise slowly, quietly, so as not to disturb the rhythm of the night. The groan of beams settling into sleep. You feel as though you are inside a living thing, and in a way, you are. The monastery has a body. You are walking through its bones. Your sandals are soundless, worn smooth with years of use. The cloister walk is a square, 4 sides surrounding the open courtyard where herbs grow in the summer and frost clings in the winter. The walk is not meant to be fast. It is not patrol. It is presence, to the wind through the archways, to the creak of old wood. Sometimes you hear the building breathe, the warmth of the day releasing through the stones. You continue along the northern side. This is the shadowed wall, coldest, quietest. You move to the eastern side. Here, the moonlight strikes directly. The courtyard glows faintly. The western walk is darker again. You pass the chapter house, where decisions are made. Tonight, its doors are shut. There is no danger here, and yet your watch matters. Not because someone might intrude, but because the stillness must be witnessed, held. You are a candle in the night, unlit but burning all the same. You pass the entrance to the dormitory. You will never know, but you imagine their dreams are quiet. A river, a field, a single psalm repeated over and over. Inside, the brothers sleep. Some snore softly, some are so still you wonder if they dream. The rhythm is not linear here. It is circular, like prayer, like the hours of the day. You are reminded of mornings spent hoeing the earth, of afternoons spent copying texts, of the sound of soup ladled into wooden bowls. You reach the southern side again. Your walk is complete, but it is not finished. You begin again. As you move, you recall a psalm. I lie down and sleep. I wake again because the Lord sustains me. You do not say it aloud, but it echoes inside you, soft and familiar. In the courtyard, a breeze stirs. The wind touches your face. All of it connected. All of it now. You are somewhere in between. A state the monastics understand well. Monks long buried in the churchyard. Their feet touched these stones. Their hands lit these candles. Their prayers echo still in the mortar. It is a symbol that prayer is never closed, that God is always near, between day and night, between flesh and prayer, between self and silence. You smell faint traces of bread, though nothing has been cooked in hours. A faint glow begins to rise in the east. Morning approaches. Your pace slows. You are not tired. You are not fully awake either, and yet it feels like no time at all. You check the latches of the outer gates, not to ensure safety, simply to feel the shape of their iron, to honor their function. You pass by the refectory, empty now, its long tables, silent witnesses to meals eaten without words. It rests with you, within you. You look to the sky, still clear, still silent. Another round, another breath. You are not alone. Though you see no one, you feel the presence of all who have walked this path before. You pass the chapel. Its door is ajar. This is not a mistake. You kneel at the threshold. You do not enter. You simply bow. You breathe. You have walked many hours. You return to your cell. You lie down. The silence you carry does not break. Soon the bell will ring again. Matins will begin. The rhythm continues. You sleep, not as an end, but as a turning, a sacred pause. Tucked between the worn stone walkways of the monastery lies a garden, modest, enclosed, and surrounded on all sides by the hushed breath of cloistered halls. It is not a grand expanse of nature, nor a place for idle leisure. This garden is purposeful, symbolic, and rhythmic. The stones are damp with dew, and your sandals make soft prints on the moss-covered paths. The air carries the faint scent of rosemary and damp soil, and a lone bird chirps from a hidden perch in the eaves. This space, open to the sky yet protected by the monastery's arms, is where simplicity dwells. It changes with the seasons, as does the life of the monastery, by four paths crossing at the center, forming a cruciform. The scent of basil fills the courtyard. Bees hum in lazy circles. You observe more than you toil. The sun does much of the labor. Its trunk is gnarled, its branches sprawling. In the shade, you rest and drink water from a clay cup. You do not speak, but you pray with your hands in the soil. The rosemary is still green, resilient, even in fading light. You press its leaves between your fingers, inhaling the clean, sharp scent. The garden has grown quiet, but it is not dead. It is reflecting. Your prayers are not urgent. They are habitual, like watering, like weeding, like waiting. You pinch the stems just above the leaf nodes, letting the aroma rise and surround you. And yet here, in the stillness of the garden, you realize that rest is not idleness, it is preparation. The soil sleeps so it may bloom again. There is no rush, no conversation, only this: earth beneath your nails, the soft snap of plant matter, and the turning of sunlight on stone. You harvest, squash, and dry the herbs on twine inside the storage room. The garden shrinks, pulls back, prepares for sleep. Snowdrifts settle in the corners, and the wind moves through the archways like breath. You do not work here now, not with tools. You walk, you observe. The fig tree stands bare, proud against the pale sky. In the middle, a small stone basin holds water, still reflecting the morning light. Calm nerves offer sleep. Around it grow herbs, sage, lavender, hyssop, and thyme. And it, in turn, teaches you to move slowly, to wait with dignity, to accept each season without resistance, not for decoration. Each has a purpose, each one gathered with prayer and used with reverence. And it is here, often in silence, that you find the slow, unhurried breath of the earth mirroring your own. You step into the garden shortly after lauds, when the morning is still tender. You do not linger, but you bow before you go. Beds of lettuce and parsley begin to show green life beneath straw mulch. The frost had barely lifted, but you felt the warmth rising from the soil. You whispered the names of the saints. With each seed you pressed into the earth, not to be heard, but simply to be. You loosen the soil with a wooden rake, your body working in rhythm with the breath of the land. Spring is cool, fragrant, and promising. The layout is deliberate, square, like the cloister itself. You kneel to tend the mint. It spreads quickly if left alone. In spring, the garden hums with renewal. The monks plant carrots, onions, leeks. You remember last Lent, standing in this very space. Summer arrives slowly. The days stretch longer. You work earlier in the morning and again in the cooler evenings. Tomatoes ripen, beans curl up the trellis. You pause beneath the fig tree, planted decades before you arrived. When autumn enters, it does so with a quiet sigh. The leaves turn copper and ochre. The days shorten. You walk slowly. Winter comes with silence. The garden appears empty. Your footprints are the only ones, and even they vanish quickly in the frost. The garden teaches patience, humility. You do not command it, you tend it. You think of Saint Benedict's rule: idleness is the enemy of the soul. You gather dried lavender to place in the infirmary, a simple act of comfort. It will ease headaches. Later, after Compline, you return one final time. The moonlight spills across the flagstones. The garden is silver now, silent and unmoving. As with all things here, the garden is a story ends, but the silence remains. You have walked stone corridors, tended soft soil, tasted bread baked centuries ago in imagination, and listened to the echo of prayers you never needed to say aloud. You have sat by the flicker of candlelight, your fingers stained with ink that never dries in your memory. And now, as the final thoughts fade, you find yourself still, not empty, but calm. History does not shout. It hums, it rustles, it sighs. And if you listen closely, as you have tonight, it guides you gently toward rest. Tonight, you stepped through portals made not of wood or glass, but of memory and soft narrative. You wandered dusty courtyards and cold cloisters. You traced the edges of old manuscripts with your imagination. You smelled the earth after medieval rain. You heard the pages turn in the quiet of distant libraries. You paused beside weathered fountains where monks washed their hands before prayer, and you lingered in the stillness of stone-walled rooms that held only candlelight and time. You followed stories not for their excitement, but for their rhythm. And now that rhythm continues, not with words, but with breath. A slow inhale, a deeper exhale. The way history rests in the folds of silence, you too can settle into the folds of night. The monks have gone to sleep. The bells have stopped ringing. The garden has folded itself into shadow. The words in the scriptorium have been written. The candles have gone out, and the night has deepened. And here you are, somewhere between then and now. There is no need to hold the facts tightly. You do not need to remember the Latin words, the names of herbs, the dates of worn-out kings or tired scribes. That is not why we returned to the past. We returned for something softer, for the comfort of rhythm, the repetition of lives once lived, the quiet certainty that no matter how hard or humble a day was, the sun still set and rose again. So much of history is hidden in the ordinary, not the parades or the proclamations, but the quiet rituals. A monk tying his sandals, a mother brushing straw from a cot, a farmer's boots soaked from the morning dew, a child watching. Shadows stretch across stone, and you've been there with them. You've moved among them in the stillness. And now, in your own time, you can let go of the world again. The walls of time are thick, but not impenetrable. With every breath, you've slipped further into a sanctuary where centuries whisper. There's a sacred stillness in this place. The kind of quiet you feel in your bones, the kind that hums under your skin, like the last notes of a song you almost forgot. Your breath has slowed. Perhaps your eyes have closed, or perhaps they linger, blinking slowly in the darkness. There is no rush. Let the weight of the world lift a little now. Let the voices of the past fade into a low hum. Let the wind of time brush gently across your thoughts. You are not alone. Somewhere, across ages and continents, others have closed their eyes beneath a starless sky, on straw mattresses, or stone floors, or tucked tightly into woolen sheets. They, too, knew silence. They, too, listened to night. We so often think of the past as loud. It lived in the hush of early morning, in the scrape of bread on a wooden board, in the soft shuffle of footsteps in candlelit corridors. It lived in repetition, in the seasons returning, in the tasks done daily, year after year. And in that repetition, there was peace. So rest now in that peace. Let your thoughts soften. It's all right if your mind still wanders. If it returns to the story, let it. Let it drift back to the monastery walls, to the fields beyond, to the chapel's echo. Let it loop again and again if it wishes. There is no destination, only the quiet movement through time. The candle beside you has burned low. The ink has dried. Your quill rests beside your folded hands. You lean back. The stone wall behind you cools your skin. You listen. Outside, Night creatures stir. A bird rustles in the rafters. The wind shifts through leaves, but inside all is still. And in that stillness you begin to fade, not in fear, but in trust. Trust in the rhythm of silence, in the continuation of breath, in the story told not in excitement, but in ease. History was not always made in battle or glory. Sometimes it was made by simply surviving a long winter, by copying one more page, by planting one more root, by folding hands in quiet prayer, by closing one's eyes at the end of a long day. Let yourself feel the weight of centuries lift. Let yourself belong to nothing but this moment. The fire has burned low in the hearth. Ash curls along the stone base. The moon sits high above the cloister roof, casting faint silver across the stones. No footsteps remain in the garden, no bells, no murmurs, only stillness. And in that stillness, the long breath of history continues. Time becomes soft. It slows. The urgency of modern life melts away, replaced by the timeless rhythm of centuries past. You do not need to remember everything. You do not need to understand it all. You only need to feel the quiet presence of the past resting beside you. Let your limbs grow heavy. Let your thoughts drift. Let the night take you gently. The hum of history is like a lullaby, steady, soothing, slow. Perhaps you see an image in your mind, a lone candle flickering softly by a monk's elbow, a quiet courtyard under a slate-gray sky, a quill dipped in ink lifted with reverence, or a chapel door just barely ajar, letting in the hush of morning fog. These are the corners of history that soothe rather than stir. And still, even now, there are echoes not of voices, but of presence. The gentle hush of cloistered routines, the steady rhythm of feet on cold flagstones, the unbroken silence of stone arches bowing overhead. You have been walking through one long twilight, one long corridor of forgotten footsteps, and now you can pause, rest, breathe. There is nothing more to do. The work of the day is done. The past has been honored in this room, beneath these words, beneath this history. You are safe. You are still. You are home. And when your thoughts drift once more, they may return to this sanctuary, this echo of lives once lived, this comfort wrapped in old linen, old parchment, old prayer. This is the end of this story, but not the end of rest. Let the quiet take you. Let the hum of time carry you. Let the stillness of centuries soothe you. You do not need to stay awake for the rest. We will still be here when you return, when the next night falls, when history calls again, not loudly, but gently. And if you listen, you'll hear it in the shuffle of straw, the sigh of old stone, the scratch of a quill, the echo of bells long silenced, and the softness of a single breath before sleep. Good night, sleep well. The past is at peace, and now, so are you. The story ends, but the silence remains. You have walked stone corridors, tended soft soil, tasted bread baked centuries ago in imagination, and listened to the echo of prayers you never needed to say aloud. You have sat by the flicker of candlelight, your fingers stained with ink that never dries in your memory. And now, as the final thoughts fade, you find yourself still, not empty, but calm. History does not shout. It hums, it rustles, it sighs. And if you listen closely, as you have tonight, it guides you gently toward rest. Tonight, you stepped through portals made not of wood or glass, but of memory and soft narrative. You wandered dusty courtyards and cold cloisters. You traced the edges of old manuscripts with your imagination. You smelled the earth after medieval rain. You heard the pages turn in the quiet of distant libraries. You paused beside weathered fountains where monks washed their hands before prayer, and you lingered in the stillness of stone-walled rooms that held only candlelight and time. You followed stories not for their excitement, but for their rhythm. And now that rhythm continues, not with words, but with breath. A slow inhale, a deeper exhale. The way history rests in the folds of silence, you too can settle into the folds of night. The monks have gone to sleep. The bells have stopped ringing. The garden has folded itself into shadow. The words in the scriptorium have been written. The candles have gone out, and the night has deepened. And here you are, somewhere between then and now. There is no need to hold the facts tightly. You do not need to remember the Latin words, the names of herbs, the dates of worn-out kings or tired scribes. That is not why we returned to the past. We returned for something softer, for the comfort of rhythm, the repetition of lives once lived, the quiet certainty that no matter how hard or humble a day was, the sun still set and rose again. So much of history is hidden in the ordinary, not the parades or the proclamations, but the quiet rituals. A monk tying his sandals, a mother brushing straw from a cot, a farmer's boots soaked from the morning dew, a child watching. Shadows stretch across stone, and you've been there with them. You've moved among them in the stillness. And now, in your own time, you can let go of the world again. The walls of time are thick, but not impenetrable. With every breath, you've slipped further into a sanctuary where centuries whisper. There's a sacred stillness in this place. The kind of quiet you feel in your bones, the kind that hums under your skin, like the last notes of a song you almost forgot. Your breath has slowed. Perhaps your eyes have closed, or perhaps they linger, blinking slowly in the darkness. There is no rush. Let the weight of the world lift a little now. Let the voices of the past fade into a low hum. Let the wind of time brush gently across your thoughts. You are not alone. Somewhere, across ages and continents, others have closed their eyes beneath a starless sky, on straw mattresses, or stone floors, or tucked tightly into woolen sheets. They, too, knew silence. They, too, listened to night. We so often think of the past as loud. It lived in the hush of early morning, in the scrape of bread on a wooden board, in the soft shuffle of footsteps in candlelit corridors. It lived in repetition, in the seasons returning, in the tasks done daily, year after year. And in that repetition, there was peace. So rest now in that peace. Let your thoughts soften. It's all right if your mind still wanders. If it returns to the story, let it. Let it drift back to the monastery walls, to the fields beyond, to the chapel's echo. Let it loop again and again if it wishes. There is no destination, only the quiet movement through time. The candle beside you has burned low. The ink has dried. Your quill rests beside your folded hands. You lean back. The stone wall behind you cools your skin. You listen. Outside, night creatures stir. A bird rustles in the rafters. The wind shifts through leaves. But inside, all is still. And in that stillness, you begin to fade, not in fear, but in trust. Trust in the rhythm of silence, in the continuation of breath, in the story told not in excitement, but in ease. History was not always made in battle or glory. Sometimes it was made by simply surviving a long winter, by copying one more page, by planting one more root, by folding hands in quiet prayer, by closing one's eyes at the end of a long day. Let yourself feel the weight of centuries lift. Let yourself belong to nothing but this moment. The fire has burned low in the hearth. Ash curls along the stone base. The moon sits high above the cloister roof, casting faint silver across the stones. No footsteps remain in the garden, no bells, no murmurs, only stillness, and in that stillness, the long breath of history continues. Time becomes soft. It slows. The urgency of modern life melts away, replaced by the timeless rhythm of centuries past. You do not need to remember everything. You do not need to understand it all. You only need to feel the quiet presence of the past resting beside. You. Let your limbs grow heavy. Let your thoughts drift. Let the night take you gently. The hum of history is like a lullaby, steady, soothing, slow. Perhaps you see an image in your mind, a lone candle flickering softly by a monk's elbow, a quiet courtyard under a slate-gray sky, a quill dipped in ink lifted with reverence, or a chapel door just barely ajar, letting in the hush of morning fog. These are the corners of history that soothe rather than stir. And still, even now, there are echoes not of voices, but of presence. The gentle hush of cloistered routines, the steady rhythm of feet on cold flagstones, the unbroken silence of stone arches bowing overhead. You have been walking through one long twilight, one long corridor of forgotten footsteps, and now you can pause, rest, breathe. There is nothing more to do. The work of the day is done. The past has been honored in this room, beneath these words, beneath this history. You are safe. You are still. You are home. And when your thoughts drift once more, they may return to this sanctuary, this echo of lives once lived, this comfort wrapped in old linen, old parchment, old prayer. This is the end of this story, but not the end of rest. Let the quiet take you. Let the hum of time carry you. Let the stillness of centuries soothe you. You do not need to stay awake for the rest. We will still be here when you return, when the next night falls, when history calls again, not loudly, but gently. And if you listen, you'll hear it in the shuffle of straw, the sigh of old stone, the scratch of a quill, the echo of bells long silenced, and the softness of a single breath before sleep. Good night, sleep well. The past is at peace, and now, so are you.